um, that we have been given to share together here. What you guys are on today is what we call a platform called Wisdom for Life and Leadership. I'm the host and the curator of this platform, and always excited to really bring about both wisdom that is applicable to the secular and the sacred space. For those who might not know me, my name is Shay Olagunju. I go by Shay Ola, and I have a background in ministry for a number of years. But in my current role and my current growth and maturation, I'm also in the corporate space. So I'm actually in the financial space. I'm a financial educator, and I'm super excited to always bring content like this. On this platform, we do multiple things. We have seminars, conferences, really really allowing people to ascertain wisdom really for their lives to really fulfill the purpose by which God has created them. And so when the things we do is looking for ways in bringing people on our platform that are able to share stories and content that I really believe is important and helpful to people in their journey. And so having Justin being here today is extremely exciting. I know that most of you guys know him, but there are many that are listening today that do not know Justin. And so I'm going to let Justin introduce himself a little bit in a moment here. But the reason why I brought Justin, and for those who might be watching, is really because I've seen Justin, a man of character, a man really after God's heart. And just to see where he's at today, it's just astonishing for me. I had the opportunity to meet Justin many years ago, probably maybe 12 years ago, 12, 13 years ago. And he was just this young buck that came on university campus at Long Beach State and some of the campuses that I was serving on as a campus minister at the time. And Justin was just so excited. If anybody knows that Justin at the time, very excited to get his hands dirty and really trying to make an impact in people's lives. And he had an opportunity to intern with me for some years, and so it was really great. Got to meet him, know him. Was at his wedding when he got married to Anne, and so got a chance to see Justin as a young guy, and he's still a young guy, um, but but just to see his growth, and then obviously seeing him go to seminary. Um, at Full Theological Seminary, which is my alma mater as well. And so it was great to see that. But you might be wondering, how can a guy going to seminary now be talking about real estate investing? That is a great question. And that is why we brought him here, because we want to be able to marry two worlds and really help us understand that the journey that is taken for him. Justin did studied religious studies also actually at undergrad level, and went on to receive his master's in divinity at Fuller Theological Seminary. And I'm very partial to Fuller, so you'll hear me talk about it quite a bit. But just to really see what he's doing today, Justin is an oncology chaplain, which is a very very important work right now at Ohio State Hospital, University Hospital, and he just transplanted to Ohio recently from California, and I know his parents most likely definitely miss him being gone from California, but and I know that he's in a good place and doing some really great things. Justin is, I believe, wears two hats, right? If you know him in the ministry space, amazing, but really also just really seeing how we can bring the kingdom of God both in the secular and the sacred space. And that is what I love about his story in real estate investing. And so with this particular one-on-one, I'm looking for you guys to be able to receive some insights, practical insights in how to enter into this space, and also kind of helping us rethink how we, especially for those who might be in the ministry space, how we can fund the dreams that God has placed in our hearts for the kingdom of God, build generational wealth, and things of that nature. So I am ecstatic and super, honored to have Justin Gottuso on. And if we can give you like a air, clap, we'll bring him on the platform. Justin, you do have the floor, and you maybe introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'm going to start asking some questions. And so if you have questions, definitely put that in the chat. We will address those questions towards the end of the time. And hopefully this will be instructive for us. This is being recorded, and this will be, we'll put it on Facebook. Obviously, it's going to be a Facebook as well as YouTube as well. And again, Justin, you have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. So great to be here. So excited to reconnect with you, a couple months ago. And it's like we could have talked for hours that day, because we were just back and forth. Oh my gosh, what you're doing and what I'm doing, just so, similar, and our passions and our hopes for the future. And you mentioned the kind of the two hats, and that goes way back, actually, way before I was born. A brief little history, both sides of my family, actually. My mom, who's watching here, hey mom. So her family from Wales and United Kingdom mostly, and in the mid 1800s, they migrated out to Colorado, and they literally had their own town that they built from scratch. They had a cheese factory, a chicken farm. It was called Gwillimville for their last name, Gwillem and the Ville. It's still there to this day, some of those old buildings and the one-room schoolhouse and stuff like that. And at the same time, some of those ancestors also became foreign missionaries. One was a missionary in Methodist Church to Japan. Actually, I was a principal at a university there, and was a missionary for decades. And then also on my dad's side of the family, you go back over a century, and my great-great-grandfather, who Italian, and actually started out with a career in the mob, but went to a church to take care of a couple guys, but actually ended up becoming a Christian, became filled with the Holy Spirit, and then became a church pastor, actually, and a church planter. And not only that, he, in the Great Depression, started being a real estate investor and had a portfolio of properties over the years. They also worked with their hands. They were furniture refinishers. That was actually the main job. The mob was, a part of it. And my dad's cringing there. Sorry, Dad, but it's just part of the history. Every family's got skeletons, but again, the redemption there, going from a life of some dark stuff to really being a source of light and inspiration to so many people, and at the same time also being an entrepreneur and having properties. I've actually visited some of those properties myself when Anne was studying in New York. It was in upstate New York. And so I've seen those places. And so my grandfather, the eldest of 10, he was also a serial entrepreneur. And so I grew up going to the real estate office where he was the president, and just such a happy-go-lucky guy, the most generous guy I think I've ever known, and very joyful, and just loved life, loved people. And so I grew up around that, and he was pretty successful in real estate. And in my journey, I initially wanted to go into business, actually, when I was in high school. But then it was in college when I met you, Shei, and I was just so gung-ho for Jesus, and still am. But I kind of let go of really anything related to money and business, and really focused on just Christian ministry, nonprofit work, and that was really kind of my focus for really over a decade. Went to seminary and things, and it was actually over 10 years ago when I was on a 6-month trip. Well, thought it'd be 2 weeks. turned into 6 months around the country. And it was on that trip that a couple of really important things happened. I got a calling to chaplain ministry. I loved people of different backgrounds as well, did religious studies, as you mentioned, and really found a home with chaplain ministry to really be with all kinds of people in times of difficulty and distress. And so I learned about that on that trip. But also on that trip, I got a vision for real estate investing for myself. My dad can attest. I'd call him I was in Kansas City, Missouri for a few months, and having some sticker shock of coming from California and things being 10 times the price. And I was like, Dad, like, you can get places for like 50 grand out here. Like, this is amazing. And key thing was I was living in a house in a really rough part of town. But friends of mine from the ministry, this Christian ministry, of this prayer ministry, we were living together and we were just trying to love our neighbors, and they were going through some really tough stuff. And we saw some people being just touched and healed. We saw people economically starting to thrive, and just getting this picture of bringing these two together, of loving people, but also having property. And so that was over 10 years ago. I became a chaplain, went to seminary, got married. And it wasn't until we moved here to the Midwest, to Ohio, Columbus, just over a year ago, that we were finally able to really dive into real estate investing more deeply. We did other stuff in LA we can talk about, but as far as buying rental properties, just over a year ago. And it was just such a cool story. We can get into more details later, but we now have 3 rentals, 13 units total, and grossing over $7,000 a month in rents, which is almost $3,000 a month net income, which honestly is almost most of my salary as a chaplain, which is pretty incredible. And so we can get into more of the details of that, but that's a snippet of kind of the background, kind of family history, and also catches you up to some of today's stuff and where we are today.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. That's that background, and just really kind of giving us insight into your journey into real estate investing. And I think it's always great to see people's maturation, and also how the things that God has placed within you through your family, and what you are being able to step into yourself. And that's pretty amazing to see kind of where you are now. I will be remiss not to ask you this question, and since you wear 2 hats, really, what is your theological or biblical underpinning, or at least your thought around building generational wealth? And I use that. I didn't say real estate. I said generational wealth, because I think it's important to speak to that. And I know that's an area at times when it comes to money, the church or nonprofit, people kind of like, I don't know how I want to interact with that. We don't want to be accused of being prosperity preachers or theologians, if you would. But I want you to kind of bring some balance to that. What is that, if you can help us, because a lot of our audience listening to this are obviously from the church world, and maybe they've been to church before, or maybe they're in ministry, or maybe there's people that are believers in the secular professions. And so if you could help us a little bit with that, that'd be huge.
Yes. So one of my favorite books of the Bible is Genesis and Exodus, actually. And so from the very beginning, as I've reflected on this question, you see God being a pretty big forward thinker, and very much interested in generations. The people of God, the Israelites, when he called them out of Egypt into the promised land, it's like, hey, I mean, Promised Land was a physical place, right? It's like a very tangible kinds of things, and he gave them rules to live by. These principles and practices to be healthy and to be holy. And there are a lot of economic policies as well. It's not just the 10 Commandments, but there's many other kind of commandments and ways of living, and a lot of them are economic as well. And and ethics. And so you see God considering not just, God's people for right now, like for your generation, but forever, like for establishing a people for many years to come. And even before that, you have Abraham, and you count the stars, and that's how many kind of nations and people I want to bless through you. So God's thinking pretty big here. And so we get caught up in anything in just my own life and my own family, but the way God thinks, in my view, is quite big, and to really consider not just my family, but the future generations. And I've really been blessed by that. As I mentioned, both sides of my family, and pretty much anyone, if you come to the United States, unless you're a native here, came from somewhere else. And so over time, they sacrificed so much, and they had to build up and pass on not only their wisdom, but their wealth as well. And I've been a huge benefit of that. And so I'm a proponent of, hey, let's pass on our wisdom as well as the wealth, so that we can serve not only our families, but our communities and people that are in need.
Wow, thank you for that. That is definitely right on the money. I think obviously when we think about the God of the Bible, right? It always speaks in genealogy, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the inheritances that are passed on over time. And I think that is, and even I believe in the book of Proverbs, it talks about the importance of building and passing on a legacy to your children's children. And part of how we do that, and that is critical, I think, as we think to that, and having a healthy relationship to money, right? And being able to do that, right? So thank you for those insights. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and as you preface that question, I've been in a lot of ways, I think, harmed by the church in many ways, by money really only being in the realm of giving tithes and offerings primarily, and maybe a Dave Ramsey class. I love Dave Ramsey in so many ways, but there's also just a whole nother level to that, and that's something later on in our conversation I know we'll be getting to as well, when it comes to investing, not just being kind of out of debt, and because I don't think God wants us to be in a bunch of credit card debt, but there's also great ways to utilize resources to multiply and to grow what we have. Again, it's not so that I can just be some rich greedy person, but I believe, and Dave Ramsey says this too, is money makes you more of who you already are. And if you're a greedy person, you get more money, well, you're going to be even greedier. But if you're a person of character and of substance, then my gosh, it's like there's just so many people I want to help, but I'm just kind of limited right now. So I want to grow that so that I can invest in other people's dreams. Like, that's one of my huge hopes for the future, is not only for our own income, for our family, but to be free to invest in other people, other projects, to really expand what's happening in the world.
No, I love that, Justin. I know one of the things that you wrote in your biography, sorry, is like you want to help people start their own real estate investment, and invest in new businesses, nonprofits, and be an investor, in their growth and development. And I think that is just so beautiful, because it's about serving and giving back, and really making a difference in people's lives. I know we're not going to take, so anybody listening to, we're not going to take any shots at Dave Ramsey today.
No,
We'll,
always
we love Dave Ramsey. So, but we will, we want to build on that and kind of help us think through some things in a way that I think we can begin to think about not just stopping the bleeding of financial waste, but then actually building from there. So bleeding, stopping the bleeding and building, right, is what we want to help people do today through this particular forum. Justin, it takes me to my next question, and that is really the importance of really thinking through um, for those who might be in the ministry context. And I wanted to start there before we get into the technical aspect of real estate investing. And I, I wanted to ask because there some of our audience today are in ministry, and they are obviously doing what we have coined ministry development, some type of ministry partnership development. And what that is if you're in the ministry world, you might hear the word MPD. I was in full-time ministry for a number of years, and I could tell you that that was the only way, the only options that were actually put forth to us in order for us to fund the ministry we were doing, as well as support ourselves. And so that can become a challenge at times when, let's say, that source dries up. Your donors, right, if you would, the people that are giving to you somehow are not able to give to you this month, or they stop giving, and you have to continue to build that. And we thank God for that way people can actually give generously. And I know there's definitely strong biblical precedents for people within the church to support each other, but at the same time we do see that there's an opportunity for us to do other things. We know that Paul elected not, for instance, to take alms from the church, but he decided to go and do tent making. So he ran his own business in a way to fund his ministry. So can you tell us a little bit, can real estate investing, and it's a lead-on question, you already know where I'm going with this, can real estate investing be a great option for ministry partnership development or sustainable ministry support raising for ministers and missionaries? Go ahead, have at it.
Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Oh my gosh. And so before I do have a few slides about this, but I want to share a few stories from some friends I know, people I know, and how real estate has impacted them positively in their ministry. So one friend of mine from Fuller, she is a church planter, and not only this, she plants churches, started a church amongst a very special community of people with various kinds of disabilities, and amazing work and ministry that she does, and she's able to work full time in this work and ministry, but only with a part-time salary, because that's at this point, especially in any new venture, whether it's business or in ministry, it's a lot leaner in those early years, right? And so she's able to give full-time dedication to this with a part-time salary, because both of some inheritance that she had, and that inheritance included a rental property. And so she has some rental income coming in that is supplementing her and her husband's income, so she can be more free to do what God's really called her to do. And another one, James, I didn't ask you if this was okay, but my buddy James, also a chaplain in LA, he's on the line right now. Hey, buddy, we actually just talked yesterday about this, and actually his dad, he's a Foursquare pastor, and they have a couple of rental properties, and again, that helps supplements their ministry as pastors, and it gives more flexibility during again leaner times and more opportunities over time. to use that. And we didn't get into this, James, but again, there's tons of equity there over time. And it's like that, then there's, again, building up of wealth that these properties do over time. And then that can lead to even more wealth generation and more income that you can use. And so that's a couple on the positive side of things, but also to frame it too is a couple of people I know, like right now, at Cal State Long Beach, actually, Shea, a member from Crew Campus Ministry, we support him and his wife each month. And I talked to him about some numbers, and I corroborated some of this with some other statistics, and it's pretty average across the board now, where it's about 12 grand a month that they need in support. And that's even nationally. They say from their headquarters, they're saying, actually, you guys are a bit under of what you kind of need, because that includes their ministry expenses, to operate the operation expenses for their ministry on campus. That includes taxes, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. And after administration costs, after all of that, they get about 4 grand a month. And that is to include housing, which in Southern California for a 2-bed, like 1 bath, is $1,850 a month. And that's not even a super nice place. And now they have a kid on the way, right? And so about half of their living expenses is going to housing in Los Angeles. And so and the rest of that is going to just their food, their cars, their insurances, their, and all that jazz. So now they're asking for another 2 grand a month from their donors to help pay for their kid, basically, and some additional ministry costs that they have. And so just and they have one more friend from Fuller who's passionate about ministry, again, 100% just donor based. And so it's so just dependent on people giving, which there's so many wonderful things about that. And God loves a cheerful giver. And God calls, hey, give, to those in need. But there's, I think, just some other smart ways to go about it. Now I'm going to share my screen and a couple slides. Any comment on that, Shay, before I get into the slides?
No. I mean, I think that you are spot on that, some of those examples, and I know we know some folks in common that are for better or for worse, be struggling in that space, and yeah, no, absolutely. I think those are great examples you cited. Go ahead, share your screen.
Sorry, one more Cal State Long Beach example is a mutual friend of ours who many years ago, she asked some of her donors to help them fund a down payment for a rental property. And then I just reconnected with her, and it's been, like over 10 years. And now they have multiple kids, and they asked God, hey, God, would you provide essentially like a house for each of our kids, so that over time, that rental income can both support our ministry, kind of reduce some of the burden from asking others for that money, but also to pass on to our kids so that they have something, because they're missionaries, they're not earning a ton, and what's something they can pass on to their kids. And God has provided that, and now they have a handful of properties. And so just for some hope for people that are like, oh, like that can never happen, or that's, never what I was trained on, or I've never heard anyone talk about this. Well, it's possible. People are doing this. There are pastors doing this. There's missionaries doing this, nonprofits doing this. And here I'm going to share my screen and just have a couple other thoughts about that.
Absolutely. Oh, this is good stuff. Please put your put comments or any type of questions in the chat for Justin, or maybe some thoughts, or maybe something you want him to touch on. This is going out to a lot of people, so please feel free to do that at any time. Thank you.
Let's see. Just gonna mute myself 1 second.
Okay. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, that's jumping ahead. Oh my goodness. Back to the beginning. Okay. And okay, here we go. Alrighty. Freedom through real estate investing. On this topic of missionaries, pastors, nonprofits, people that are used to just raising money from donors, a concept. If you had 150 donors, which is fairly average to raise, my buddy at Calgary Long Beach, he has over 100 donors, and so let's say 150 donors over time versus 150 tenants. 150 donors versus 150 tenants. So how much does it cost over a lifetime, over a career, 40 years, let's say, of that same, like my friend raising 12 grand a month? What is that over 40 years? $5.76 million. And that's before adjusting for inflation. So maybe what, around $7 million or so over a career in ministry full time. So how much capital do you need to fund a full-time missionary or pastor for life through real estate investing? $1.5 million.
Wow.
That's sorry, that 1.5, I need to update it here, but $1.5 million is a 20% down payment on a $7.5 million 150 unit apartment complex here in the Midwest. $50,000 per unit. That's pretty normal out here. We can actually get them for less, in the $35,000 to $40,000 per unit range, with just add a little rehab into it and increase the value, which is $15,000 per month, because typically those kinds of things you can get at least about $100 net after operating expenses, after paying the mortgage, $100 per month per door, per unit, basically. And so that 150 units covers the entire income for that missionary or pastor for life. And this is an asset. This grows in value over time. Rents increase over time. And the thing with apartment complexes, when you increase the operating income of it over time, the value of the property goes up. And so again, that property that's worth $7.5 million, increasing the rents after 5 years, and then that property goes up to 10 or 12 million in value. And then you sell that property, you earn a few extra million, and then you put that into a new property through a 1031 exchange. Anyway, so that's kind of more the kind of how things grow over time. But even just with one property like this, that gets you that full-time, fully funded for life for what's that? What, a quarter? More than less than like 20% of what it would cost if you just asked donors to give for the rest of your life.
Wow. 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 That is that's super eye-opening, for anyone. This should be part of ministry training.
And it gets, I don't know if it gets better, but here, let's go to the next one here. Hold on, back to share. Oh, there you go. So again, so what is smarter? Raising $12,000 per month from 1 to 200 donors for life, or raising $1.5 million of investment capital from people's existing home equity, or maybe their cash, that will be paid back with interest within 5 years, and fund that same missionary for life.
Wow. Wow.
And I'll unpack that a little bit here, is that, that same friend from Cal State Long Beach, this campus minister, I asked him this about how many of those donors, of his 100+ donors, own their own home. And he said at least 50%. So that is, at least 50 of those people own their own home. And they have, he said most of them have owned it for a number of years. And so that is a good amount of equity that people have built up over time. And in my experience, it's pretty rare that people actually use the equity in their home for investments. A lot of people might use it as a credit card to buy stuff, but to actually use it strategically as an investment, because those interest rates are great on home equity lines, and you can, it's revolving. You can just use it and then you get it paid back, and then you don't have to pay every month on it. You pay for what you use. So anyway, so let's say these missionaries, these friends, they have all these people that have equity in their homes. And if you gave them a proposition, instead of, hey, do you want to do you want to be on the subscription model of ministry and pay me every single month for the rest of my career? Or would you like to be an investor where we're going to just tap into, maybe 10, 20 grand, of the equity in your own home, and that you're currently not using, that can be utilized for wealth building? How about we put that to work? Why don't we put that into a joint investment with a handful of our other donors, and we're going to buy an apartment complex together. And how this is going to work is, we as the missionaries, we're going to get the income from the property per month, but you guys, you're going to get the payout in 5 years when we sell that property. And so you're going to get repaid your principal investments of that equity plus some interest on that. And then we'll roll it into the next one. And we're going to grow our impact. We're going to expand our ministry and what's possible. So not only are we going to have our basic needs met, but then we'll be able to do even more. And instead of you throwing your money into just the seeping, like this glass that is broken at the bottom, that you're just dumping, you're just dumping water in and it just keeps going out the other side. We're actually going to be not only filling up our cup, but we're going to be overflowing in just positive growth. Which path would you like to go down with me in the future? And what do you want to sign up for? And some people still might go for the, hey, I'll give you 10, 20, 50, $100 a month. I'll get a tax write-off for it. Great. But I'm sure a decent amount of people are going to be like, you know what? I want to become an investor, because this isn't just about, wealth and greed. This is about impacting people's lives, and I get a return on my investment for it. So, like, what's the barrier here? Yeah, let's do this. And Shay, you're muted and you're spitting wisdom of gold, but I can't hear you.
There you go. There you go. Can you guys hear me now? Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that is wonderful. I know we were talking about this a few months ago, kind of working out some of this thought around how this can be approached, and even bringing this across to missionaries and ministers that are thinking about how they can approach their donor base or their supporters, if you would, to see, how do I put this out there? You'll be surprised, and this comes from experience, that how many supporters that are out there, or ministry supporters or donors that are out there, that will be willing to go into their equity because they want to give. They see a need in that area. And if you can come with something like this, it makes a whole lot of difference, because here's the reality is that even if you have a faithful partner that gives to you on a regular basis, the average shelf life of a donor to someone who's going to do ministry for 40 plus years it's really like 5 years.
Right.
If you're lucky, you might have someone committed to giving to you for 5 years. I know that because I have data to prove that for myself. And if you actually look at it on the average, part of how we're trained is like you have to go back out there and continually getting new donors, maybe people you've ministered to. But imagine if you're able to go and say, I want you to give to me one time towards this particular goal. And you can actually get a return of investment on this as well, in here on earth, right? In terms of finances, and really be able to give it back in that way. So that's amazing to see that. Justin, can I throw this back at you?
Yep.
So what would you say to people that might say, well, Justin, this sounds great in theory. What if I try and nobody really wants to help me out this way? What else can I do? Or maybe someone is sitting overseas right now, maybe a missionary is overseas and say, do I have to come back to the United States to do? How would I navigate through that? Is this possible? It's like, well, sounds great to you, Justin, but how possible is this? Can you give us some more examples? Maybe help us here. Yes.
Great. So glad you brought that up. That's what I was thinking too. If you didn't bring it up, I was going to be like, well, but I got to talk about how realistic this can be, because
Yes,
not just theories and numbers.
Yeah.
And projections and things, but is this really possible, right? And so just one thing, these numbers, very realistic. I can list off a number of deals out here that have come my way just in the last 3 to 6 months. That's where these numbers are realistic. So if you're wondering, no, like again, I'm from LA or I'm from wherever, and like these numbers aren't real. Well, it's because you're looking at California, but the Midwest, very different, and things are much more inexpensive out here, and your money goes a lot further out here. And then when it comes to actual people doing this, so one of my mentors here in the Columbus area, Chris, he is a contractor. He's a agent. He is a real estate investor, and he's also a very, very strong believer and Christian. And he does Bible studies, with his construction crews before they go out to work. He helps a lot of people coming out of prison to just kind of get them a job, get them housing, and get them on their feet. And I've met some of these guys as well that have stayed on and become, contractors, and, working with them is just really amazing and life-changing. And not only that, he helps missionaries and pastors do this. So people from around the world, he just told me the other day, because we were talking about this presentation, and he's like, oh yeah, I just yesterday, I helped a missionary from overseas, refinance their home and to start investing, with us. And so, because missionaries and pastors might be thinking, well, what if my donors, don't like this? Well, maybe the actual missionary or pastor, maybe they own their own home, and have they thought about refinancing? Do they have equity that they're not using? They haven't been trained or educated about that. Right. And also when it comes to that, even if they're like, I don't have any property to my name, I got nothing, Justin, like, how can I do this? Well, honestly, neither did we. So there comes a point for everybody where you're just like, I don't have property and I don't have the money to get it. So again, that's where it comes with ask and you shall receive, and you might need to ask more than 1 or 10 people. Just like going for donors, as anyone knows, it's not going to be just every single person you ask is going to give you $100 a month. Like, no way, right, Shade? There's a lot of just
No.
That was a big laugh. That was a big laugh. You went back in your seat on that one, which tells me you had to ask a ton more people.
A lot of people. Yeah.
A lot of people, right?
It's a 10%. If you're doing well, it's a 10% conversion ratio.
Yeah.
So just letting you know that.
Right. And so imagine, but so Exactly. That's a realistic number, right?
Mhm.
But imagine if you start thinking in a different mindset, you start thinking instead of getting 10% conversion rate of donors,
Mhm.
what if it was a 10, even if it was a 5%, a 50% less conversion rate, but it
Mhm.
was for equity, right?
Yeah.
And you talk to 100 people, and five of them were like, hey, I'm sitting on a good amount of equity. Yeah, I'll give 10, even 10 grand. I mean, which is a pretty low amount for equity in a home. And there you got 50, say you got $50,000 now.
Mhm.
And but Justin, that's not 1.5 million. Don't worry. Again, $50,000 in the Midwest goes a long way.
Mhm.
That can get you, that can buy you a property. That gets you, okay, so 50,000 gets you 20% of a down payment on a $250,000 piece of property.
Mhm.
And again, in the Midwest, that is like a 5 units property.
Mhm.
And and so with that money, again, you just grow it and scale it over time. And so
Yeah.
if you have a 5 unit property, just from those 5 people, only 5 people that are committing to be, investors with you, not just donors, but investors with you, you can get a 5 unit property, and you're getting hundreds of dollars per month from that. And again, in time, you get more equity from that property, you sell it, and then you scale it to the next level. And then you start sharing with other people, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to be a part of that." I've people only talk to me about they want my money. They just want my money every month.
Mhm.
But imagine you would be the only person they've probably ever heard of come to them and say, would you like to partner in an investment opportunity that is going to fund my ministry and return your principal, return your money with interest?
Mhm.
You're going to stand out, my friend.
So Justin, really quickly here, because I want to be mindful of the time, because I want you to talk a little bit more about some technical aspect of actually getting into real estate investing and things of that nature. One of the things I wanted to ask you, we do have some more local pastors, and I want to kind of shift gears from ministers and missionaries who are obviously raising support to sustain their ministry, but then also thinking about churches and maybe nonprofits that are thinking, how do I scale into real estate investing to fund ministry work? Now, people might be giving tithes and offering, to the church, or things of that nature. What can churches begin to do in this particular market right now, where maybe they are looking for opportunities that could really help them? And some of these churches are sitting in places like California. Some of these churches are sitting in places, that are maybe a little bit expensive, but still looking for ways. How do I fund my ministry? How do we help our church grow and help us go towards our mission? And really go forward in that environment. It was an article that you and I would we shared together. I think it was Christian Missionary Alliance. I think that's the name of the particular denomination, and they bought a huge they bought a huge property, right? And they converted it into rental properties to actually give back to their communities. And so, can you speak to that for that small church, thinking about what can we do to generate funds and also give back to the people we're reaching out to?
Exactly. And so same principle. And next slide is just 150 members versus 150 tenants, right?
Okay.
Or 1,500 members versus 1,500 tenants. So same principle here. And like that story of the Christian Missionary Alliance right here in Columbus, purchasing property is, so many churches, they only think of the sanctuary. They just think of this building for us to come and gather, to worship God. But when you can think in a multi-dimensional way, because we're not saying don't have a sanctuary, but what if before spending 5, 10, or sometimes $50 million on a church only building? Come on, right? What if you started out with a apartment complex that was generating income every single month to pay for your pastors and pay for your next property, which would maybe then be the sanctuary, right? And so it's just a shift in mindset, I think, in just thinking about, we have to get people to give us money every week to fund our, operations. To how can we have people be partners and investors in our community?
Love that. That is an amazing concept. I remember some years ago, International House of Prayer, Mike Bickle and his wife, they bought some properties, and specifically it was a rental property where they were able to house these missionaries that were coming in, and also kind of help the community out right there in Kansas City. I even remember even the practicality of the wife actually getting a real estate license, in order for her to be able to do some of those things. And that we've been to Kansas City, they like pretty much in the front of a storefront property that they've been in for many years, and now they have enough equity as an organization to buy more things and do more with that. But I thought that at the time, this is like maybe 15 years ago when they did something like this, was pretty smart for an organization that was not necessarily, it was a parachurch, not an actual church at the time, and so thinking through that way. But I think you've given us a lot there to think about. If you're joining us, welcome. If you have questions, please put that in the chat. If you have any questions for Justin around, if you're a church pastor, a missionary, a pastor, thinking through this, some of the things that he's sharing with us, thinking, how can I fund my ministry to real estate investing, and maybe some things out there, maybe some advice that you might need, definitely put that in the chat. Let's get more technical, Justin, here on some of these questions. What I guess I call it 3 or 5 things. Do you think all real estate investors have to know and do? I know that's a broad question and there's a lot they could do. But if you say, look, I got to give you 3 or 5 nuggets that you need to walk away with today, I want to start right there, and then we get more technical from there. Awesome. 3 to 5 things. Yes.
No, actually, I got them right here. Thanks for sending those questions ahead of time, because I'm prepared for those. So and thanks for all of your patience. For those who are waiting for this moment of like, okay, like in my own life, what do I do here? Let's do this. Thank you. So here we go. Number 1, a clear reason, and basically defining your why. Like, what's your reason? What's the meaning and purpose for why you want to get into investing in the first place? Because that is going to motivate you. It's lonely, it's tough, it's nitty gritty. I know I've shared a lot of like kind of woo, kinds of stuff, and I can motivate just about anyone to do not anything, but just like, just that raw, kind of passion and vision. But it's tough stuff too, and it takes a lot of inner fortitude and perseverance to do it. And so you really got to know why you're doing this, or else it's really easy for it to just to not keep going. And so to really define that for yourself, and be really clear about it, whether it's financial freedom for your own family, so you don't have to be in your corporate job. Again, not that these jobs are bad or anything, but it's just like, it's about options. It's about flexibility. It's about whether it's more time with your family and your kids during really important years, whether it's, being able to travel, more and expose your kids to, different things in the world, or it's for more giving, more, in addition to, I know for us, like we want those things, but we also, I want to give more, right? I want to be able to help other people more. And so for your own family, or if you want to grow your business, you want to grow just your impact in the world, just define that. And not only define it, not just like some, you know, a bullet point list, but even what's called a vivid vision. It's one of the books I'm going to recommend at the end. And I have it here in front of me, but to write it out like a story as well, just having some anecdotes, like an actual picture, like where do you want to be, right? Where do you want your family to be in 3, 5, 10 years? And what a physical place, right? Like, and what do you want things to look like, feel like, you know? So not just some theoretical, just some numbers are, be specific about the numbers too, though, because, you know, have the feelings about it, have the vision, but also have the numbers, you know, kind of where you want to be, and then kind of work backwards from there. That's number one. And number two, relationships. Our source, those are the sources of wisdom, access to deals and connections, resources, because there's about 10 different kind of team members that you need in real estate. I can go into those in more detail later, but it's about relationships. My mom's a real estate agent. She's, you know, been doing this for years, and she knows there's just so many referrals, you know, that you need to have. You need to have this Rolodex of a handful of people, you know, contractors, you know, agents, and not just agents, but wholesalers, you know, people that are getting, you know, off-market deals, you know, people that are getting things under contract for below the asking, you know, below what it would be when it's on, you know, the MLS on the main market. And you need, you know, plumbers and all that stuff, but mainly, you know, contractor, you know, you need an attorney as well, and a great CPA that understands real estate, because there's a lot of tax benefits, and you want people that are smart about investing to be on your side when it comes to tax time. And that's one of the just the powerful tools with real estate as well. And so, and also just mentors, you know, like the deals that we got, all of the deals that we've done so far have come through one mentor. A person that originally was just he was just the seller of this property that was a great deal. And I showed up, and he just kind of really liked me, and he's like, hey, this young ambitious, you know, guy that was like me when I was his age, and I want to sell it to him instead of some corporate investors that were just some investment group, and kind of went over his heart. And now we've done we have 3 deals already, but now we have another one under contract with the same guy. He's now become a mentor. He treats me like his own son practically, and he just really cares about us, and you can't buy that. So just investing in people and relationships just leads to just so many blessings. And that's number 2. Number 3, honestly, some industry knowledge, and which you can get from podcasts, from books, from trainings, from personal experience, and borrowing that experience from talking to people that have been doing it longer than you. And you can do that through biggerpockets.com, a great resource for all of the things I just mentioned. It's the largest forum for real estate investors in the world. They have the largest real estate podcast in the world, a lot of great stories and things. That's one of the big ways I got into the investing and the networking was through them. And so that's number 3, industry knowledge. Number 4, like I said earlier, is a team of people for your different needs. Like I said, wholesaler, broker, contractor, property management. I didn't mention that. So important, because you don't want to get called at 2 a.m. for a toilet. Most of the missionaries and pastors and just people that I know aren't really great at fixing toilets. And honestly, if you try to do it, you're probably going to mess it up, and it's going to end up costing you more money and time, because time is money with business. And so you might as well get a professional, but not just a professional, but someone that's like at a good fair rate, not someone who's going to jack you up, but finding a good quality contractor, and as well as just different sub disciplines like plumbers and painters, stuff like that. And then lastly, I haven't mentioned money yet. That's important. Is capital, right? So whether it's yours, maybe you have some money that you have, maybe you've got a great job, and you and your spouse have a great job, and or business, and you're doing well, and you can kind of self-fund, your first deals. That's awesome. Or if you don't, and you need to borrow, whether that's from a family or friend that does, they do have, great jobs, they do have great, or they have equity, they have stuff they can loan to you. Because again, even if you don't have the money, if you have everything else, if you got the connections, right, you got the relationships, you got some knowledge, about it that they don't have, that's valuable to them, right? Because they might have equity in cash, but they don't have the expertise, right? So you might be thinking, oh, but I'm just driving to work, listening to a bunch of podcasts, or I'm spending my lunch break, calling up, attorneys and CPAs and brokers and wholesalers. Like all those relationships are money. Those relationships are money, literally. Like for other people that they have the money, but they don't have the connections. Not everyone is spending time learning about real estate investing, right? It's like, oh, I got money in the stock market, but that's about it, right? A family or friend of mine had some bad experience with real estate back in the 80s, and so I'm not going to do it. It's like, oh, okay. Sorry, this is number 6. Sorry, this is a bonus. This is a bonus one. Like, what do you need to be successful with this? Again, you need courage, because there's going to be insecurities. There's going to be, bad experiences that you've had. You got to have some, you need some reconciliation in your life. You need some healing in your heart, probably, in order to have some faith to step out there. Right? Because it's tough. Yes, you can lose your investment. Yes, you can lose other people's money. But you know what? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And Wayne Gretzky, the great NHL champ, said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Right? It's like if you're never going to step out and do anything, well, okay, that's your life. Awesome. That's great for you. But like, if you really want to grow, you're going to have to step out and do something that's going to force you to grow. And that's going to be taking a step of faith. And actually, my buddy Ron from LA is on here, and he's a entrepreneur, and he started his own company, and I kind of left his corporate job. And man, bro, like, that takes so much courage, so much faith to step out there and just start your own thing. And just keep going and going and going. So I want to reiterate that, of just the character and the tenacity to do these things.
Wow. I mean, that's huge. That's definitely huge. They're hearing that. I think that is so important. Clear vision, contacts. That industry knowledge. Thinking about capital, how to get that. And yes, someone is giving you a huge round of applause. Lord, I think is doing that. Courage. I think courage is so important. And courage, for people of faith, we also get courage, really through our faith, right? Without faith, it is impossible to please God. And if you have a vision that is God's size and it's huge and it's big, it's going to take you to actually step out and believe God to do the homework that you need to do and continue to do that. But you're giving us some great nuggets there. Let's get a little bit deeper here. What factors or fears? What factors or fears have you seen that prevent? And I think you alluded to this earlier. It prevented many from entering into real estate investing. And then what I want you to do from there is talk a little bit about funding. One of the big hurdle most people think of is obviously the money part. Like, how do I get started? And there are tricks in what tested truths within real estate investing that I want you to speak about, especially around funding and capital, securing that capital to start your first deal or whatever that is. So, first, the fears that people have, and then talk a little bit about funding. So two for one there. Mhm.
Awesome, great. Yeah, so some of those fears, I did mention some of these, but I'll reiterate and expand on those. Is so number one, fear the unknown. So again, I'm a chaplain. I deal with people facing death literally every day, and it's that fear of the unknown. What's it going to be like when I die? What's going to happen to me when I die, right? But if you break that down, that like death is like the maximum of that, the unknown. Like it's like the big unknown with the capital U. Like the big unknown, right, is death in a lot of ways, and the fear of death. But if you break it down to the smaller scale of things, like it's just the unknown, right, of what's it going to be like when I step out there, and what's going to happen if I fall down, and if I struggle, right? And also that fear of the unknown of, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Because I haven't done it before, right? Well, hello, have you learned to ride a bike? Right? Have you learned to have you gone to school, for the first time? Have you started a relationship, and pop the question of like, so shall we be boyfriend, girlfriend, or shall we get married, right? Like it took a lot of gumption to do that too, right? And so this is with money, and which has some of its own just kind of uncertainties and the unknowns, but it's the same fundamental emotional experience, right? It's the unknown. And again, by stepping out there and trying, well, they might, the boy or girl, they might say yes, right? And you might get that first deal done. You might get that donor to help fund your deal. You might get the loan if you apply for it, right? But if you don't apply, you can't get it. If you don't ask, you're not going to receive it. And a couple other things too is, again, afraid to lose your money. Afraid of what other people are going to think. I didn't mention that earlier, right? Honestly, not everyone in my life thinks what I'm doing is the best thing in the world, or that I should be doing it now, or why don't you do something else, or honestly, you survey a bunch of my friends and family, they might also think it's a sin, or you shouldn't be even talking about money. You're a chaplain, just be focused on the soul or whatever, right? But a lot of people in my family are also in business too, and in real estate, and so I know a lot of them would also be like, hey. I told some of them, and they're like, about this presentation, they're like, man, like, I'm so proud of you, and so encouraged by what you're doing and stuff too. So you just gotta kind of drown out some of the noise, basically. I hear this from tons of people that are way more successful than me. Like that's a common thread I hear, is to basically drown out the noise. You got to listen for like safety things, like just like with my kids, it's like you got to listen to mommy, daddy's voice when we say stop. When we say stop, that is like a huge
stop.
Not run across the street. When I say stop in my dad voice, like you stop. You gotta listen to those people that are like, dude, like you're about to go off a cliff. Like you are way in over your head, but at the same time, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because maybe that person who's saying you're about to walk off a cliff has never done what it is that you're about to do.
Yeah.
Because that is different than that same stop from someone who's done what you're about to do, right? Like if they've done it and they're like, holy cow, man, like I've been doing this for a long time and that's crazy. Like you might want to take that a little more seriously um, than someone who has no experience doing what you're doing or what you're about to do. And they're just like, because really, they're just scared for themselves. I see this with grief and loss with people all the time too. It's like they're like, oh no, don't do what you're about to do. Don't let mom or dad go and die because they're scared, right? Mom and dad, they're fine. They're at peace. They're ready to go, but it's the son or daughter who is not ready, right? So, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more, get more practical around funding, and securing that capital for your first deal. In terms of, I know that's a question that came up for some before this insight. In what ways can investors secure that capital needed to invest to do what they need to do? Do they need to use their own funding, or do they need to use someone else's funds? How do we get into this a little bit?
By any means necessary. So it might come from multiple vantage points. So and Shay, if you didn't mention this, but you have an MBA, my friend. And so you are in the corporate world, you work in a bank, like you're teaching and educating people on this. So please feel free to chime in especially on this topic of the funding. For just other strategies. If you're like, hey, that's great, but like there's other things out there, please, don't leave the people hanging.
Keep on going. You go.
So we've already talked about some of them, but to be clear, so yes, one can be from your own source of funds, because you might think I need $100,000 to like get into real estate. You don't. There are programs, and again, mom's an agent as well, and she knows that there are a lot of programs out there for whether it's your first time buying a home, because you can get into real estate investing even with your primary residence in multiple ways. So one could be a more traditional way of, well, actually I'll go in the more kind of, I think even the better route to go. So don't even think I'm just going to buy a house for myself. I'm just going to buy a property just for our family. So think about a duplex. Think about multifamily from the beginning, because honestly, those properties are oftentimes about the same price of what you're going to pay for a regular primary residence, and so maybe getting a 2-unit place where you live in one and you rent out the other. And if you Google this, it's called house hacking. Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets coined that term. And basically where you're living in one and you're renting out the other. And oftentimes then your expenses go down a ton in your own life, right? And so then you do that for a couple of years. If you're like, I don't have any money, but I can maybe qualify for maybe a 5% first-time home buyer down payment on a property, and so pretty low down payments, and then you're lowering your expenses from renting, where you're paying someone else. You're paying another real estate investor's mortgage versus finally having your own and having someone helping to pay yours, is one way to go about it. And so just as you're thinking about maybe buying a place for yourself, just think differently about it is one way to go about it. And another is what we did, where we had a primary residence. It was a 3-bed, 1-bath house. And before we had kids, we did house hacking through Airbnb. We rented out, not everyone's going to be okay with that, but we rented out 2 of our rooms, actually. We live by LAX, and that was pretty successful for us. So Airbnb is another option. And if you're in a state like California, actually, the accessory dwelling unit is one option. If you have a primary residence right now, and you're like, hey, I want to get into real estate investing, is you can basically turn your primary residence, your single family home, into I call it a duplex. Basically, you put an ADU on your property, which you can convert your garage, or you can put a tiny home on your property. It's totally legal, and then you can generate rent from that, where you can, which it would cost maybe about 100 grand to do that, and then but people pay rent for almost 2 grand a month, and so $100,000 mortgage on a tiny home, which is like 500 a month, and then people are paying almost 2 grand in rent, and so that's a way to generate income for you every month, even just using maybe your own primary residence. And so that's a couple things. Again, one is borrowing money as well. Again, you might think I don't have any money, so I can't qualify, but literally itemize, go through how much total assets do you have? Do a profit and loss statement, which gets to your net worth. And it might be more than what you think. And you take that to a bank and you say, this is what I got. What can you loan me? Right? And see what your options are. And then also going to, again, family and friends, people that you know that have some equity, or they might have some cash and they might want to get into investing. And it might not be that first person, but 5-10 people down the road, I think you'll find someone who might be interested in helping to fund your first deal.
Yeah, no, that's pretty amazing. And I know we do have some experts online as well, and we'll leave some room for comments as well. Robin, James, in terms of some of the things that people can do practically in terms of taking advantage of the programs that are out there. For those who already have homes, and what Justin was alluding to earlier is I do have an MBA, and actually what I do for a living for corporations and universities is to teach financial literacies, and so around different topics. And I talk about this all the time, looking at different deals and different opportunities, obviously how to approach banks, how to tap into the equity in your home. I think you alluded to something earlier. There might be someone on the line right now that actually have a home and they have equity in their home, and actually using the wisdom of being able to take the equity then to actually invest in a property. So now let's say you don't want a house hack, which is it's kind of quite popular amongst Gen Zers and the millennials, right? Like, look, I don't want anybody in my house, right? Right? Right. James is smiling, right? It's like, yeah, like, I don't know about that. What else can you do, right, with the equity that you have in your home, and looking at those, thinking about those things are really, really important. And Robin put something in there. He said the best thing you do is establish good credit so that you have options. Absolutely, absolutely. I say this, and people, it depends on how you look at it, but especially I said, cash can be king in some contexts in real estate investing, but credit is king. When you understand how to leverage your credit to your advantage, it's a powerful tool that you have, because you actually have options. If you're looking at anybody who's looking at obviously getting into that first property, what Justin said is just an incredible advice. If you can have maybe a split level property where you're living in a part of it and they're living in the other part of it. Depends on where you are in the country. Obviously, some places have basements already. You can turn your basement apartment and use it that way. One of the things that I really think I really think when it really comes down to this is, especially for that first time buyer owner, look at the programs that are in your area, and seeing how you can actually take advantage. So FHA is one way, right? I know you have to be worried, obviously, and I wouldn't say worried, but be aware of, that private mortgage insurance that might be attached to the FHA, which might be there, but, sometimes it's worth it looking in that way. But there are organizations actually in your city that might be offering first-time home buyer programs, and they might give you additional money towards your down payment. And so it's important to kind of know that early. Some of them just only require that you take some type of class to show that you understand how to manage your funds. Budgeting is very important. In that way, making sure that you actually, when you get into that house, you're not become what they call it, cash poor, your house rich, but you don't really have any money to actually pay your bills or fix the house, right? If there's stuff that comes up. So understanding some of those things, there's credit counseling that a lot of those organizations will provide for you in order for you to get in their place and actually understand what to do, how to hold on to that house and actually turn it into an opportunity that can yield for you. And for those who actually have equity in their homes and they're looking to obviously access that equity, right, and especially at this time when rates are a little bit low, right, and being on the banking side of things, there's obviously the risk appetite that banks have right now. They might be a little bit stringent on underwriting, but if you're able to clean up your credit and you have solid credit coming in, you'll be surprised what they would be willing to do for you, because again, they want to lend, and they want to be able to do that at this time. And so that's incredibly important to understand what is it. But when in doubt, reach out to people that can talk to you and help you kind of figure out the game there, because from the financing side, looking at it, if you're going to a traditional bank, what are the things and options that you have? If you have cash on hand, how do I want to approach it? How do I want to go about doing those types of deals? Obviously, it's a very competitive market right now. Like, properties are flying off. And Robin, you probably know this, right? It's like you list a home, a bunch of people show up with a bunch of offers, and people are literally bringing cash and say, "Look, I'll get this house right now from you," everywhere in the U.S. Exactly. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for us to take advantage around kind of what Justin is talking about. For those who already own your own property and you're looking to do that, you're actually in a great space. If you're tied up, I'll say something. If you're tied up maybe with a second mortgage, maybe where you have a home equity line of credit where maybe the interest rate is not so great, reach out. Reach out to your financial institution and see what they can do for you to help you maybe refinance that rate and free up some of that. In that, you can do a cash out refi, see what you can do in there to kind of free up that capital in your equity. And I see a question in the chat says, for a church or a nonprofit looking to invest in real estate, what's the best option, land or multi family option? So they're saying, do we buy land or do we go after that multi-family housing opportunity? Yeah. And I'll go ahead.
Hard to jump in. Sorry, but I think for if it's the first time going through it, I'd say buying an existing undervalued by the sense of maybe needs a little work, but is the bones are good and it's cash flowing, but it needs maybe a little work. A multifamily property is what I would recommend, because if you go the land routes, you're talking about construction, and that we've done construction. I know a lot of people that do ground up construction, but you're talking multiple years. And just honestly, on the lending side, it's a much greater risk versus something that's already existing, already has cash flow. And I think it's just gonna be an easier win and kind of a lower hanging fruit to get involved with than going the land and construction route. But I'll also say it also depends on your property. So some churches, depending on where it is geographically, you might be actually sitting on a good piece of land where, if you're in an area that maybe you have a massive fields, and you have like a massive parking lot, but you have like a building that only seats 100 to 200 people. So maybe, honestly, you might not think it's possible, but trust me, cities are interested in development because that means more tax dollars for them. And so use that leverage to your advantage. If you have a bunch of existing land or could even help another church do this, right? A sister church in your denomination, or a friend that you know of, right? That you can maybe partner with on this. Maybe because you could have maybe multiple congregations coming together to do this, right? To say, hey, let's go in this. You're going to spread your risk out a bit more and kind of share it, right? And maybe it's and so you could do that together. Maybe one denomination, one church has the land, but another one has maybe more capital, and you kind of come together and you form a partnership, right? And you say, hey, for the next 5 years, let's try this out, and we'll, one does the land, one does the capital, or a bit of both, and we go to the city, find some local, find some faith-driven, like people of faith that are in real estate in your community, and they're everywhere, and that would be kind of your advocate, to go with the city and to partner with them or some of the other local civic groups to say, hey, we're looking to develop some, especially if it's affordable housing. Cities love that, especially if you're in like a higher priced area and stuff. But even just in general, cities love that kind of stuff. Hey, we're going to develop some affordable housing and repurpose some of our property. We're going to get income, but we're also going to provide we're going to meet a need for the community, right? And so trust me, there's a lot of stories about this and examples of this around the country, and even a lot of churches and denominations that do housing development. Even right near Columbus, actually, there's the Church for All People. They're part of the Methodist Church, and they're helping to they partner with Habitat for Humanity, and they help acquire and rehab properties, and then rent them out to people at affordable rates here in the city. And they get a piece of that, but they're also helping people.
Oh, that's good. We have another, I think, I don't know, Pastor EJ, if this was a comment or question. Says, we're in California where land is fast disappearing, just like houses, and that is that's a reality there. I think we get into juices flowing here, and obviously, and I wish we had all day. We'll probably have to bring Justin back on the platform again to go a little bit deeper. But I wanted to say something really quickly. Thank you, Michelle, for being on with us. As we close this out today, some questions. Obviously, Justin is going to make some recommendations. We want to kind of hear from some of you guys. Some of you guys have put some stuff in the chat for us, and that's really great, and that's amazing to hear from you. So definitely, if you have questions, any comments, we want you to be able to kind of voice that and let us know, kind of know what you are thinking. One of the things I wanted to, as we close out this session, is a question for, and maybe you can kind of just, I think you touched on this earlier. I know people within the real estate investing world, you hear different strategies. People say, well, the fix and flip is the best way to go. Rental property holdings is better. I mean, I know, at least from my perspective, I think both has its place, and combining both strategies are obviously important. But if you could speak to that just really quickly, I know you touched on it, and then the question that I want you to ask after that question is really for young people listening to this today. And we're all relatively young, but you're talking about the Gen Zers. I mean, Justin, I wish we knew this, like, I don't know, I mean, you and I were kind of like, oh my gosh, like in your 20s, like running around on whatever, and being wise in that way. What can you tell a young person, a Gen Z or maybe a younger millennial, thinking through what the possibilities? So, but if you can first answer that question, fix or flip or holding, a rental property holdings.
Yeah, great. Really depends on the deal. Sometimes it's going to make more sense to fix it and then to sell it, fix and flip. And like, if you're going to make a killing on it, like, 70, 80, 100 grand, a good amount of money. Well, some of my friends in LA, when they flip, it's like 200 plus grand. And it makes sense to do that. Versus other times you might rehab the property and it'll make more sense to keep it as a rental, because just how it's going to work out, where maybe you'll get your value back over a few years, but then the cash flow, it's also your strategy. Like, if you really need just cash in your pocket each month, then it's going to be the buy and hold kind of a strategy. And that's mostly what we're focused on right now, and especially in the earlier years, kind of like, hey, we just want to get a lot more income coming in each month. But then again, we're also going to be supplementing that and starting to expand into fixing and flipping once we refinance our properties, because that is a great way to generate more cash. And which is called like flipping to freedom. So so we're both getting the cash flow out of the get-go, in the beginning, but then we're going to use like about a third of our refinanced capital to go into flipping, so that we can just keep accelerating the income that we have coming in, so that we have more for more down payments and to expand what we're doing.
No, that's great. And then the question for as we close this out, and then be ready to share your recommendation for young people watching this today. What would you advise a Gen Zer or younger millennial right now considering possibility of getting into this?
Do it now, do it now, do it now. The sooner the better. Like any investment, honestly, whether it's stock market or real estate investing, the sooner it's time in the market. The longer your money is in, whether it's the real estate market or stock market, like that is a better predictor of your long-term success than almost anything else. Almost less than what you buy than just the time you hold it. I mean, you got to buy good stuff, but over time it really adds up. So get in now, do it, do whatever you got to do and just start now is my biggest recommendation. And for those that might be like, oh, I don't want to own stuff, like I don't want to have responsibility and stuff like that. Think beyond like 2 years, or think beyond 5 years, start thinking 10, 20 years, right? Is and where you want to be, because what you really want is flexibility, right? And freedom. I know that. If you're young, you're like, oh, I just want to be able to do whatever the heck I want to do, right? Well, you're not gonna get there without money. That is the message I wish I heard when I was a 20-something.
That's right.
I know you want flexibility and freedom to do whatever you want to do, but it costs money to do that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. No, thank you so much for that. I think this been extremely this has been extremely informative, inspiring, and challenging us to kind of take that step out. Before you share your recommendation at the end, I want to open up the line really quickly here. I know we ran a little bit over our time. For any comments, I know we do have some experts online. Maybe they just want to share maybe any questions that you have. You want to kind of maybe voice. I know people have been putting stuff in the chat function, but if you want to unmute yourself, maybe share a thought, share a comment, a question. We definitely want to do that. Justin is being generous with his time here with us, and so we really appreciate that so much. So you have the floor here. Anyone want to unmute themselves, share a comment, a question, and then I want to have Justin share some of his recommendations, and we'll be done here. Okay. If there are no if there's no one who wants to mute themselves and share anything, I'm gonna let Justin share some of his recommendations for us, because I think that's some great things that he's been kind of referencing throughout the time, books and podcasts and other places we can find some of the things he's been sharing with us. Justin, you have the floor.
Awesome. Yeah. I will put James on the spot for just a sec, because I see that you unmuted yourself. So does that mean
Okay, sorry, James.
you have a question or a comment? I take that the silence as a no. So or maybe you didn't even hear me. So cool.
I'm not sure you can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, EJ.
I'm not sure you can hear you. Anyway, hey, thanks, Justin. This is very informative. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we've been playing this kind of ping pong game, Yes, from like the question I asked earlier on, I posted on the chat. Yes, you're right. Knowing that an existing property something you can quickly do some adjustment and have almost immediate impact. But when you also come to like, a future thing like land banking and all of those things, so you can do
Yeah.
something better down the line.
Yes. Yes.
That's how the land thing, came into the picture, because it's like, you can be to a, you can be to visit a place in the next 2 months. That place will be completely different. Something else is coming up in that place. And thinking, in that regard, it doesn't make sense to tie down capital to buy the land and just leave it there, knowing fully well that you may not do anything, or even the permit sometimes in California takes a long time, you know. Um, but again, I think we'll see a future. I think this is something we'll probably, maybe through Shay, like to talk to you more about and how we go about it. We are also of the opinion not having a cathedral that is less than 10% utilized doesn't make sense. It doesn't make economic sense. You have a building you only use for church service,
Right.
and now with the COVID, many people are not even coming into a building for service. So it doesn't make sense at all. So I think this is something we'll probably need to follow up, and we'll need your guidance on how we'll go about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. No, you brought up some great points there, EJ. One is, yeah, land banks. Every county, has them, and there's a lot of, vacant land. There's a lot of opportunities and things that have gone into, or things have gone to foreclosure through the cities that they own, that you can get some great deals on, whether it's land or to rehab a property. That's some great ideas there, and then also the repurposing of even existing church buildings, right? And maybe there's an adaptive reuse where it can be utilized, where by doing some modifications and things, maybe it can turn into some other, either add some rentals on the side or some commercial space, because eventually, people are coming back to
back up, yeah.
eventually. And but maybe like one of the churches in Los Angeles that I used to be a part of, the Free Methodist Church, they had started a co-working space in their church offices. And so during the week they had, co-working space. Right now, actually, I'm coming to you live from a co-working space here in Columbus. That we have a membership to, and because people need, kind of that flexible space. It's like a kind of a coffee house on steroids, where you have this. It's like the vibe of a cafe, but but it's more of a commercial kind of thing. And actually, that's where Ron and I met. Again, at the Toolbox LA, a co-working space up in the San Fernando Valley, and so I think that's a viable thing where you can kind of get some more rental income from reusing your own space as well. And also to consider is, if you have some capital from California, or refinancing, the church property potentially, or just other things, or people partnering from the church community, is you can also invest out of state, right? You can invest in the Midwest, right? So instead of buying just maybe a single family, or just a very small property in California, you'll get good appreciation, but the cash flow is going to be nothing in California. But you can invest in the Midwest and get good cash flow, but also get some appreciation as well.
Yeah. No, that is great. That is absolutely great. And rubbing the same and seconding that as well, found that to be true. Absolutely. You know, being able to do that. I have friends who are obviously in real estate, in real estate investing market as well, and they'll call me all the time, like, "Hey, do you have any deals in Philadelphia? Like, it's a major city. You could flip houses really quickly there and do certain things. Maybe hold the property as rental." So absolutely, looking at that as an option, and I think it will be great to. Definitely probably have you back on again, Justin, to kind of maybe help us flesh some of that out, some of those opportunities and stuff. But that's huge. Any other questions or any thoughts or comment? Thank you so much for that, EJ. Thank you. I know some other folks have joined us. My parents actually came on as well, and to be a part of this as well. So, Justin, do you want to share some of your recommendations and some thoughts, and maybe that might jug some other questions for us as we close this out?
Yeah, if you're wondering, okay, what can I read? What can I kind of do to get started? Right. And so number one, this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, yeah.
So a great snippet, the basic premise of he tells a story of two dads in his life. One is biological one, and one kind of his mentor dad over the years. One was in kind of a 401k kind of more education path. He was like a professor and stuff, and the other one, and he just didn't have a ton investment wise, and didn't really think about money so much. That's the main thing. He didn't really just consider money a whole lot. It was just about his work and just helping the people, right? Which will really resonate with anyone in ministry, right? Or everyone just got that bleeding heart. It's like, oh yeah, like just help the people. Don't think about myself. Don't think about the money, right? And then there's his other dad, mentor dad, who was one of his neighbors, who was a successful businessman and an entrepreneur and real estate guy. And just he goes into just the valuable lessons he learned from a young age from him. And it boils down to really buying assets, not liabilities. So things that are going to help make you money versus things that are going to just take your money. So, but it's an amazing read, very valuable. It's like the #1 finance book like of all time. It's amazing. Second one is this. I referenced it earlier. It's Vivid Vision. And so this is Cameron Harold's, and this will really, it's a short, quick read as well, and really help you flesh out getting, kind of your thoughts of what you want, kind of your meaning and your purpose for why you might be doing investing onto paper, and really help you motivate you. As soon as I wrote mine down and started sharing it, like more deals came my way, like, and more people were like, oh, hey, like I want to help you out, right? So just as a reminder, just share the vision, like share what it is that you're trying to do with people, and you're going to have people come to you be like, I want to help, or I want to do that too, or whatever. So, and last one is this, on the raising capital side of things. It's called Raising Private Capital. And this is a mentor of mine, Matt Faircloth. And I'm a member of his online community, and yeah, I'm close with him, and so when it comes to raising capital for multifamily investing, he's one of the main guys for it, and so that's Matt Faircloth.
Can you move it up a little bit? Okay.
And actually, Shai, guess where he lives? Jersey.
My area? Yeah.
Lives in New Jersey. And actually has a handful of deals in Pennsylvania as well.
Pennsylvania.
And, kind of up in the Northeast and stuff. So great guy to connect with. You can find it, and you can find his YouTube videos online, and it has a lot of free stuff. And then lastly would be just biggerpockets.com. Like I said, it's the biggest online forum for real estate investing. You can ask questions there. I have a profile there. I post stuff there. I have an amazing podcast. You can listen to things, stories from people that are successful in real estate investing. Not only that, but they'll go into like when they had nothing into the journey. What was your first deal? Like how did, like these questions that you were asking, Shai, but they have like hundreds of them, over like last 8 years. So great resource to just hear different stories of success from people, learn from them. There's so many strategies on how to do this. There's not one way to go about it. So just getting exposed to a lot of different opportunities with real estate investing is just something I really recommend.
What's the name of that website again? What's the
Bigger Pockets.
Bigger Pockets. Okay, that's right.
And the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Bigger Pockets podcast. Okay.
And a lot of people don't know this, but Brandon Turner, the main host of it, is not only a Christian, but one of his first deals came from someone in his church. Their first big multifamily property came through a member of their church because he had read a book. He's all passionate about it. He had like a deal, and then they're like, oh, hey, we've been looking to sell our property. And one last tip of financing of how to go about it is seller financing. Is when actually the seller, what they want is some income from the property, but they don't want to sell it because it's going to be really bad for their taxes, for their capital gains. And so you can actually own the property and get some cash flow from it. And then basically you pay them the mortgage. But anything on top of that, the actual cash flow, you keep it. And so they're basically the seller becomes the bank. And then, but you operate it, you own it, and then and they're basically the same. And my mentor does that a lot. Seller financing. That's another financing. Yeah. If you don't have the money yourself, is finding a seller that is willing to finance it to help them in their taxes. And they're out there. And I actually know some of them. So.
So if you're looking for a seller finance opportunity, reach out to Justin. I'm just kidding. Oh, probably your mentor, yeah. So no, this has been extremely informative, challenging, and really kind of allowing us to really, really dig deep. Again, if you're just joining us, you are watching an interview from my good friend Justin Gottuso. In Ohio, from Ohio right now. Are you in Columbus, Ohio? Is that where you're? Columbus, Ohio. Originally from California, Southern Californian boy, transplanted into the Midwest, and he's doing great things there. And I know that this content is really important to a lot of us, and I know it's made a difference. A lot of people are going to be hearing this and rewatching this again. And so we're super excited for what you've been able to share. You are, if you're wondering which platform you're on right now, so Wisdom for Life and Leadership, where we believe that, that we want to be able to bring about wisdom in both in the secular and the sacred space, and allowing us to kind of apply our hearts to wisdom. Christ is the wisdom and the power of God as was revealed in First Corinthians. And that is what we want to be able to allow us to be able to work and ascertain the wisdom that God has provided to the body of Christ in both the practical sense and the spiritual growth that we need in our lives. And so that is what we love about this platform, that God has called us all to be servant leaders in one capacity or the other. And being able to kind of navigate through that is important. All that we need for life and godliness is in him. And so being able to lean on other people, other brothers and sisters that have walked certain path in places we want to go. And that's why I love bringing Justin on, who's a chaplain, but also a real estate investor. And he's been a wealth of knowledge to us today, bringing a lot of great information. And thank you all for those who've joined. Some have dropped off because they have other things going on, but it's been pretty amazing. If you have any questions, please drop that in the chat. You can always definitely reach out to us. Let me share contact information really quickly here to help us through this process. Again, if there are any questions, this would be definitely going to be a great opportunity for us to go into some of that and allow us to gain some more wisdom. But on our platform, we do have a lot of things that we are doing right now that I believe are probably going to be helpful. More videos and other content that can really be helpful to us during this times that we find ourselves. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity that we have after the 2020 we've had, right? To be able to come and have an opportunity like this to still be here, right? Despite all the stuff that 2020 had. and brought our way, and we are very thankful for all that God allowed us to do during this time. And so a little bit of our social media and contacts that we have in Facebook. You can find us at Wisdom for Life and Leadership, just spelled out that way. We have an IG, Instagram, Wisdom for Life and Leadership as well. And on our YouTube channel, we have multiple videos from different other interviews. And I'm asking everybody to go back and definitely get an opportunity to listen to this content and watch it again. We're going to be sharing the links all over again, so you can actually share that and spread the news, especially for those who are in the body of Christ and even beyond. Email is wisdomforlifeandleadership@gmail.com. Again, it's email contact is wisdomforlifeandleadership@gmail.com. And we are excited and ecstatic that we have the opportunity to continue to do things like this and making a difference, in the body of Christ and beyond. And I want to thank Justin for coming and blessing us with some knowledge and really helping us with that. I don't know if there's any other questions today, but I'm going to release all of you guys to have the rest of your Saturdays back. And Justin, thank you so much, my brother, for coming. Thank you for all the participants that have been on. I see your parents, Robin, Mario, my parents on there, Pastor EJ, Arvid. I know Michelle was on with us for a little bit. Ron, thank you so much. And my wife, Ronke, and many more that are watching online with us. Thank you all for joining us today. I know this has been very helpful. And Justin, you got to promise to come back. I got to have you back and give us some more, some more stuff. And we love you, man. Thank you so much, and God bless you. And let's continue to step out and have faith and believe God to really take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us. God bless you. Bye now.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.